Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the English Learning Podcast. I'm Sarah, your host.
And I'm Bill, your co-host. Great to have you with us today.
Today, we're diving into a super important topic that many English learners struggle with: how to train your mind to think in English like a native speaker.
Yes, so many learners tell us they understand English, but when it comes to speaking, their brain still translates from their own language. That slows everything down.
Exactly. And that mental translation can make you hesitate or even lose confidence when speaking. But the good news is, you can train your brain to think directly in English. It's just a matter of practice and the right techniques.
In this episode, we're going to share 5 powerful steps to help you build that habit of thinking in English naturally and fluently.
We'll talk about immersion techniques, daily mental exercises, using visual cues, overcoming the fear of making mistakes, and how patience and consistency play a huge role.
By the end of this episode, you'll have practical tips you can start applying right away to get your mind thinking in English. No more translating in your head.
So, whether you're just starting out or have been learning English for a while, this episode is packed with advice that will take your fluency to the next level.
All right, let's jump right in and unlock your brain's potential to think in English like a native.
All right, Bill, before we jump into the solutions, let's talk about the problem itself. Why is thinking in your native language such a big obstacle for English learners?
That's a great place to start, Sarah. When learners think in their native language first and then translate into English, it creates a mental delay. Imagine if every time you wanted to speak, your brain has to do extra work, like running a translation app in your head.
Exactly. And that extra step slows down your ability to respond naturally. It's like you're stuck in slow motion while others are having fast conversations.
Right. Plus, translating word for word often doesn't work because languages have different structures and expressions. So, your sentence might sound awkward or confusing when you translate directly.
I've heard many learners say, "I know the words, but I just can't say them fast enough." Or, "I get nervous because I'm translating in my head and it takes too long."
That's so common. And the more you rely on your native language for thinking, the harder it becomes to build natural fluency. Your brain is basically stuck in translation mode instead of switching to English mode.
So the real challenge is to train your brain to skip that translation step and think directly in English. That's what we're focusing on today: how to make English your first language in your mind, even if it's not your native language.
Exactly. And the good news is, with the right techniques and practice, anyone can do it. It just takes time and some smart training.
All right, so now that we understand why this is such a hurdle, let's move on to how you can overcome it. Ready?
Ready? Let's dive into the first step: immersing yourself in English every day.
All right, Bill, here comes our first big step. Immerse your mind in English. This means surrounding yourself with English as much as possible in your daily life.
Yes, Sarah. Immersion is like giving your brain constant exposure to English. The more you hear, see, and interact with English, the faster your brain starts thinking in English naturally.
So many learners think immersion means moving to an English-speaking country, but it's really about creating an English environment wherever you are.
Exactly. You can start with simple things like changing your phone or computer language to English. It sounds small, but it forces your brain to process English regularly.
That's a great tip. Also, watching movies, TV shows, or YouTube videos in English helps a lot. Choose topics you enjoy so it's fun and engaging.
Listening to English podcasts or music during your commute or workouts is another great way. Your brain absorbs the sounds and rhythm of English without even trying.
Don't forget reading. Books, articles, or even social media posts in English give you a chance to see vocabulary and grammar in context.
And if you want to take it a step further, try labeling things around your house with English words. For example, stick a note that says refrigerator on your fridge, door on your door, and so on.
That's a super practical way to keep English in front of your eyes all the time.
Plus, if you have friends who speak English or online language exchange partners, try chatting with them regularly. Real conversations give you that natural push to think and respond in English.
The key is consistency. Even 10 or 15 minutes a day of English immersion can make a huge difference over time.
Absolutely. Immersion helps your brain get used to English patterns and reduces the need to translate.
Here's a quick example. Imagine you're cooking, and instead of thinking, "What's the word for knife in English?" you just see the word knife stuck on the drawer, and your brain instantly links the object with the English word.
Right. Over time, your mind stops pausing to translate because the English word and the object or idea become directly connected.
So, listeners, start looking for ways to immerse yourself today. Change your device language, watch a favorite show in English, or label something in your room.
And don't stress about understanding every word. The goal is to expose your mind to English regularly and naturally.
Exactly. The brain is amazing at picking up patterns and meanings even if you don't get everything right away.
All right, Sarah, that wraps up Step 1. Ready to move to Step 2. Training your brain to actively think in English?
Let's do it. All right, Bill, now that we've talked about immersing yourself in English, let's move on to something even more hands-on, practicing thinking in English daily.
Yes, Sarah. This step is all about training your brain to form thoughts directly in English, instead of translating from your native language.
One of the best ways to do this is by talking to yourself in English. It might sound funny, but having small internal conversations or narrating your actions in English is super effective.
I totally agree. For example, when you're getting ready in the morning, you can think or say out loud things like, I'm brushing my teeth, or now I'm making breakfast.
Exactly. It's like exercising your English-speaking muscles, but mentally. This helps your brain practice constructing sentences naturally.
Another great practice is journaling in English. Writing about your day or your thoughts, even if it's just a few sentences, pushes your brain to use English actively.
And the beauty of journaling is you don't have to worry about being perfect. The goal is to practice expressing yourself in English without stopping to translate.
Also, try to slow down your internal speech at first. Give yourself time to form English thoughts before you speak them out loud or write them down.
Great point. I sometimes tell learners to imagine they're telling a story or explaining something to a friend in English inside their head.
Let's do a quick example. Say you're at the grocery store. Instead of thinking in your native language and then translating, try this. I need to buy apples. I also want some bread. The apples look fresh today.
Nice! Practicing sentences like that regularly helps your brain switch into English mode more quickly.
And if you get stuck, don't panic. Just try to keep going with what you know or use simple words. Over time, your vocabulary will grow naturally.
Exactly. The key is consistent practice. Even a few minutes a day can make a huge difference.
So, listeners, start making it a habit to think in English throughout your day. Talk to yourself, journal, narrate your activities, whatever feels comfortable.
The more you do this, the more automatic English thinking becomes, and before you know it, you'll be speaking with greater confidence and speed.
All right, Sarah, that covers step 2. Ready to talk about how to connect words directly with meaning using visual and contextual cues?
Absolutely, let's go. All right, Bill, now we're moving on to step 3, using asterisk visual and contextual cues asterisk to help your brain think directly in English.
Yes, Sarah. This means linking English words and phrases directly to images, feelings, or situations, instead of translating from your native language.
Right. For example, when you hear the word apple, instead of thinking the native word for apple and then translating, you want your brain to instantly picture the fruit itself.
Exactly. This direct association helps your mind bypass the translation step and connect meaning straight to English.
One way to practice this is by using flashcards with pictures and English words, or even apps that teach vocabulary through images.
Another practical tip is to describe things around you in English based on what you see. Like, if you see a sunny sky, you think, the sky is bright and sunny, instead of translating from your native language.
Yes, putting English words right onto your environment like that strengthens your brain's connection between English and real-world objects or ideas.
And context is huge too. Words often have different meanings depending on the situation. So, learning words within sentences or real conversations helps your brain understand English naturally.
Let's do a quick example. Imagine you're at a park. Instead of thinking, I am at the park in your native language and then translating, you picture the park and immediately say to yourself, I see kids playing, or the grass is green.
That's it. The more you practice this, the easier it becomes to think in English because your brain directly connects words to images and contexts. No translation needed.
So listeners, try using visuals when learning new words. Label items with pictures, use English media that shows things clearly, and practice describing your environment in English.
Visual and contextual learning is a powerful tool to train your mind to think like a native speaker.
All right, Bill, shall we move on to the next important step, accepting mistakes and building confidence?
Let's do it!
All right, Bill, now on to a really important step, accepting mistakes and building confidence. This is often the biggest challenge for English learners.
Absolutely, Sarah. Many learners get stuck because they're afraid of making mistakes or sounding silly. But here's the truth. Mistakes are a natural part of learning.
Yes. In fact, making mistakes shows you're trying and improving. Native speakers even make mistakes sometimes. The difference is, they don't let it stop them from speaking.
Right. When you accept that errors are okay, you free your mind from fear. That mental freedom helps your brain think and speak more fluently.
I remember when I first started speaking English, I was so nervous about saying something wrong, but the more I spoke, the more comfortable I got.
Same here. It takes practice and patience. One tip is to focus on communication, not perfection. If people understand you, that's what really matters.
Another good idea is to keep a mistake journal. Write down the mistakes you make and learn from them. That way, mistakes become stepping stones, not roadblocks.
And don't compare yourself to native speakers. Everyone's learning journey is different. Confidence grows when you celebrate your progress, no matter how small.
So, listeners, remember, mistakes are proof that you're pushing your limits and growing your skills.
Exactly. Embrace them, learn from them, and keep moving forward with confidence.
When you build this mindset, thinking in English becomes easier because you're less worried and more focused on expressing yourself.
All right, Sarah. That's step 4 in the bag. ready to talk about our final step: consistency and patience.
Let's wrap it up. All right, Bill, we've reached the final step: consistency and patience. These two go hand in hand when training your mind to think in English.
Absolutely, Sarah. Learning a new language is a journey, not a sprint. You won't become fluent overnight, but with daily practice, your brain will gradually start thinking in English naturally.
Consistency means showing up every day, even if it's just for a few minutes. It's better to practice a little bit regularly than to study a lot once in a while.
And patience is key because your brain needs time to form new habits and connections. It's totally normal to feel stuck sometimes. Just keep going.
Remember, every little step forward counts. Celebrate small wins, like understanding a phrase without translating or thinking in English for a few seconds longer.
Exactly. With consistency and patience, thinking in English will become second nature. Your mind will switch to English mode effortlessly.
So, to all our listeners, stick with your practice, be kind to yourself, and trust the process.
Great advice, Sarah. And that brings us to the end of today's episode.
All right, Bill, before we wrap up, let's quickly recap what we covered today about training your mind to think in English like a native.
Sure thing, Sarah. First, we talked about why. Thinking in your native language slows you down. The mental translation delays your fluency.
Then we shared 5 practical steps to overcome that: immersing yourself in English, practicing thinking in English daily, using visual and contextual cues, accepting mistakes and building confidence, and finally, being consistent and patient.
Exactly. Remember, immersion means surrounding yourself with English everywhere. Movies, music, apps, and more.
And daily practice helps your brain build the habit of forming thoughts directly in English without translating.
Visual cues help link words to meanings instantly. And accepting mistakes lets you speak more freely without fear.
And of course, consistency and patience are the keys to making all these habits stick for the long run.
So keep practicing, stay positive, and trust the process. Your brain is capable of amazing things.
Thanks for listening, everyone. We hope these tips help you think in English more naturally and confidently.
Don't forget to subscribe and share this episode if you found it helpful. See you next time on the English Learning Podcast. Frekjorn.
That's a wrap for today's episode. Thanks so much for joining us on this journey to train your mind to think in English like a native.
We hope you found these tips useful and that you'll start practicing them right away.
Next time, we'll be diving into how to improve your English listening skills, a crucial step to understanding native speakers better.
So make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss it.
Until then, keep practicing, stay confident, and keep thinking in English.
See you in the next episode.